People keep asking the question why you and your son Elon care so much about the UK, given that you're both from the other side of the world. But your parents were from England, right? Is that the reason why you have this interest in the UK?
Well, we are all children of the UK, of England, I would say more or less, the four parts of England, I suppose. Yes, we are English, we are part of the English world. And, we are only where we are because of England. We are here because England set us up, over the past few hundred years. You know, the world owes a great deal to England. And, in the past, when we had any difficulties, along came England and sorted them out. Even the 13 colonies in America could never have been, become independent on their own without tremendous input from England to build them to the level that they were. So yes, the world is speaks. We speak English. We are part of the English-speaking world. We feel a great deal of gratitude to England. We feel English, and when we see that things are not so good in England, we start looking there, and saying, "What's going on?" I mean, England has always been a place that sets the example.
So one of the questions that people must ask you a lot is what you were like as a parent. But I would like to go back even further than that, and find out how you were raised, what your parents were like, and what your childhood was like. I heard that you grew up quite poor in an interview I watched with you. What was your childhood like?
Yes, my parents were, my mum was an immigrant from England. She came out during the war on a refugee ship, ducking U-boats. And my dad's father, of course, was British. He came out before that for the Anglo-Boer War. And anyway, the thing is, we were poor. My father spent 6 years in the war, and he was in the intelligence corps. He was really seriously affected physically and mentally by the war. He was never right after the war. Anyway, the thing is, when I say right, he shook a lot. But anyway, the thing is, um, we grew up poor, yes. So we lived in a refugee area in Johannesburg at the time called Hillbrow. We had two rooms, and my parents had one as their bedroom, and there was a lounge in which I lived on the couch. And until I was at least about 10 years of age, when I went, my mom took us back to England, and I grew up in England for a couple of years. And and yeah, so we were poor, but other people only had one room, sometimes with three people in it. So we were quite lucky to have two rooms.
And what did growing up in that kind of environment teach you about character, and what sort of motivations did it give you to go on and have the success you had?
Well, there were a lot of refugees at the time, or people who came out from England, sort of immigrating to South Africa after the war. They'd been in the war. It was an incredible experience. And because I actually lived in the lounge of the sort of lounge, and my mother had a piano, and she could play the piano and sing and so on. And so these people would come every night, nearly every night, I think, and they would, because they had nowhere else to go, and they would come into my mom's lounge, and they'd sit there, from Ireland and England and all over the place, Scotland, and they'd come there and they would talk during the night. I would sleep under the table. There was a sort of dining room table, and I'd get my blanket and pillow and lie under the table, and I would listen to them, you know, right through the night, or late into the night, singing and crying and fighting, and then talking and then crying and fighting and singing a lot. Uh, 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 you know. So obviously, I was able to listen to them and hear about everything as a young boy, and so I was pretty clued up. By the time we went back to England, on the other hand, when I went back with my mom in 19, I was 10, and I went back there, and I came back when I was 12, and England was a wonderful place to me because it was, a place where I was able to. People were very kind to children in England, very kind. It was different to me from South Africa, you know.
what was it about this country in the UK that you liked so much when you felt that it was in a good place?
as a child. You know,
Uh,
the place was set up for children. I mean, you know, everyone liked children. I mean, you know, every Friday we'd go and get our quarter pound of sweets, I seem to recall, and at the local shop, and we'd go swimming, and you didn't. I don't think you had to pay or anything, and indoor swimming pools, and you know, and they had competitions for children at the local, you know, sort of community center all the time, and the children were spoken to quite nicely, and you know, we didn't have that in South Africa. You know, we got hidings nearly every day, no matter whether you did anything or you didn't. They found a reason to give you a sort of hiding. And in England, they were very kind to children. That's what I remember.